Welcome to all those above me that watch over me, to all of you, my fave para peeps on this side of the veil. Welcome. This is Reverend Sean Whittington's Paranormal Ministry. I'm your host, Reverend Sean, the Rev. Welcome to my haunted house, my very haunted house. Been quiet today, though, but you never know. With today's guest, it could pick things up a little bit. We only have an hour, so I'm going to try to get to him as quick as I can because I know that's why you guys all tuned in. First things first, let me dip into the prayer urn. See who's going to get an opening prayer today. Okay, I got one here. That's a heavy urn. And I have bad allergies, so forgive me if I start coughing and can't stop or pass out because I'm on allergy meds. Adrian will take over and just interview my guest and turn my camera off, and the rest is good to go. Oh, this is a good one. This is the Hickok family, and no, they're not any relation to Wild Bill. I asked the first time I met them. This hits close to home, and I'll tell you why. This was a gentleman that reached out to me and had already spent thousands of dollars to have one of his children. I'm going to try not to say too much, air too much of their dirty laundry, so to speak, for lack of a better term, but they had already spent thousands of dollars to have. They suspected that one of their children was possessed, and they spent thousands of dollars to have a gentleman perform a Zoom exorcism for the child. And things just got worse. So he reached out to me already ready to reach through the phone and strangle me to death for somebody else's mistake. So what I did was I had a one-on-one conversation with everybody in the family and then a group one. Determined not only that the child in question was not possessed, but did determine that they had some extremely rare and strange paranormal activity going on. And it may not have been demonic, but it did exhibit some extreme malevolence. So I approached it that way. Came up with a game plan for the family because what this thing was trying to do was break the family apart. And that's what they do. Their goal is to break the families apart. So I had to come up with a game plan to get the family back together and all on the same page, that they together were stronger than this thing and they had to battle it together and not let it separate them and single them out one by one. So anyway, long story short, they have done everything that I've asked them to do, and things have changed around dramatically for the better. And I know they're tuning in today and are anxious to hear what prayer I pick out for them so they can crank the volume on their computer and let my words bellow through the home. And so I got to pick a good one. And if anybody here, if this story resonates with any of you out there, crank the volume up on your computer. And just remember that if you take anything away from this story, don't pay anybody any money to do Skype, Facebook Live, StreamYard, Zoom, any type of exorcism over those social media things. Can't be done. So be aware of that. Look at the fine print on these websites when you reach out for help and make sure that they're not charging money for that sort of stuff. Okay, let me pick a good one for the Hickok family. Oh, this is a good one right off the bat. Let's go here, okay? Name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. In his name and by the power of his cross and blood, I ask Jesus to bind any evil spirits, forces, and powers of the earth, air, fire, or water, of the netherworld, and the satanic forces of nature. By the power of the Holy Spirit and by his authority, I ask Jesus Christ to break any curses, hexes, or spells and send them back to where they came from, if it be his holy will. I beseech thee, Lord Jesus, to protect us by pouring thy precious blood on us, my family, the Hickok family, all of my paranormal ministry family, which thou hast shed for us, and I ask thee to command that any departing spirits leave quietly, without disturbance, and go straight to thy cross to dispose of as thou seest fit. I ask thee to bind any demonic interaction, interplay, or communications. I place everyone within the sound of my voice under the protection of the blood of Jesus Christ, which he said shed for us. Amen. Hickok family, you know the rules. You guys get a large candle. Okay. Families get the large candles. Your candle will enjoy the show here with me, and then after the show, I will put it in the room with all of the other candles that are burning. May the Holy Spirit intervene in your lives and stay there for the remainder of your paths on this journey. Amen. Okay, guys, if there's anything you want to know about me and my wife and our ministry work, you can find out at our website, www.ghost-b-gone.biz. If you're there, I know times are tough, but if you notice the donate button and you're able to do so, click on it and send in a small donation. We don't charge for our ministry work, helping people with their paranormal issues, so I promise you it'll be appreciated from the bottom of our hearts, and I assure you we will put it to good use. In addition to being an ordained exorcist, I'm also a certified spiritual advisor, intuitive coach. If you're having issues of a spiritual nature not attached to the paranormal, and you'd like to speak to the Rev about that, there's a place on the website where you can make an appointment to speak with me about those issues. Don't leave the website without navigating back over to the page called the WSE course/book. On that page, you'll run into the Ghost Store, and there's all kinds of cool things to purchase in the Ghost Store if you go for that sort of stuff. But scroll down a little further on that page, and you'll run into my new haunted autobiography, God, Ghosts, and the Paranormal Ministry. And I quote, the scariest book I ever published. That was Annette Munich, owner of Stellium Books, my publisher. But please don't let that scare you off of purchasing a copy. The beautiful thing about the book is that part of the proceeds of every sale of every copy of the book goes to support stjude.org and St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital, Nevada. And that is a beautiful thing. And I recently added a new charity to that. It's a no-brainer because I've been in the animal care industry most of my adult life. I added the ASPCA, so you get to help the animals too. What else do I want to tell you guys? I have a course, the Worldwide Society of Exorcists. I founded it. I have a 12-week online college-level course, Introduction to Spiritual Warfare. I am the instructor. You will only be dealing with me. This course is for all of you warriors for Christ out there, spiritual warfare enthusiasts that hunger and feel a calling to want to have more knowledge and learn how to properly draw your line in the sand, make a stand, and put up the proper and the good fight against, God forbid, true evil if it ever comes calling. It's a 12-week course. It's online. You can enroll there at the website, or you can go to the Worldwide Society of Exorcists Facebook page, read more about the course there. All my students graduate with a stunning diploma, certificate of completion, suited for framing, along with some very special blessed items that you can only get from yours truly, the Rev. So please keep all of my former, current, and future students in your prayers. Okay, the reason why you guys all came. My guest is a guy that I've been wanting to meet for a long time. We have a ton of mutual friends, but he's one of those cats on the other side of the country, very busy. You know how it is in this field. It's hard to right place, right time, all the stars line up, but that happened today, so you guys are going to love him. He seems like a great cat. He is the founder and creator of Mass Paranormal Adventures and Team K Paranormal Research Society out of Cape Cod, Mass, my absolute favorite part of the country. Brothers and sisters, please welcome to the show the one and only TODD KOEP. And Todd, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Did I?
Close. That's how a lot of people say it. It's actually Kep.
Kep?
Kep, yeah.
Kep, you got it. Let me make a notation here.
Close enough.
Well, that's because you and I have never met before.
It's true.
But a mutual friend of ours, and you know who she is,
Yep.
talks about you all the time. I talk to her once a month, and she always brings you up and has great things to say about you.
Nope.
So let me get the more important things out. Let me take. I'm about to have a coughing fit here.
Yep.
Let me start with the most important things. I know you're a family man, and I know this past year is a year that we all wish we could wave a magic wand and it just get a do-over.
Yep.
How have you and your family and everybody close to you that you love and care about how have they held up through this pandemic the past year, and how is everybody doing and you doing now?
We're good. Most of us are vaccinated with the exception of my 8-year-old. That hasn't been approved yet, so we're waiting on that. The rest of the family's doing pretty well. Knock on wood, we haven't had too much tragedy from the pandemic, at least in our family. I've had a lot of friends that have caught it and some friends that have passed. So it's been a rough year.
Well, you look great, brother, and I'm glad. I know that I've asked that question of some people and got far worse news than that from them. So God bless you all. You guys are in my prayers, and so hang in there. I got a lot of questions here from both friends and followers of yours, and a few of my own. Cape Cod, Mass. Okay, I'm going to give you a chance. I'm going to ask you questions that's going to give you a little time to talk more in case, I feel a coughing fit coming on here. Cape Cod, I remember it fondly growing up in Cold Neck, New Jersey, and my father taking us there once a year on vacation. And my memories are wonderful. I love everything about the place, being a paranormal investigator and passionate about the paranormal. I love haunted lighthouses. I love the stories of ghost ships, pirates, all of that sort of stuff. It's claiming to be one of the most haunted areas of our paranormal country. And there's a lot of other towns that claim that. Speak up for Cape Cod, how haunted it is, and where on the list do you think the town should be?
Oh, well, that's a good question, Rev. I moved out here about 12 years ago from California, and I've been investigating the paranormal since I was a kid. My first experience was at 8 years old. I've been doing this for a long time, and done stuff all over the country. But out here seems to be, and I don't know if it has to do with the history, just kind of the tragedies and the atrocities that happened 400 or 500 years ago. But it's pretty active. And we've been fortunate enough to run into some very interesting things, some very evil things, and some very positive, friendly things, and everything in between. So I've been investigating out here, firsthand since I moved out here. And we've had everything from municipal cases to residential to business cases, historic sites, museums, pretty much anything you could possibly want to investigate out here on the East Coast. We've done, and it's definitely interesting. But I would say the history is the biggest part that really got me out here in the first place. I'm a huge history buff, and I love that. And because there's such a large history and it goes back so many hundreds of years, I'm not going to say it's easy to find out stuff from the past, but it seems like it does kind of come up quite a bit. So when you're actually investigating a place and you're looking into the history of these places, there's a lot of documentation. And so it's for me, it seems to be a little bit easier to trace those roots on what potentially is in those locations or who it is. And we've had some very fascinating conversations. So it's been a lot of fun, but it's up there. It's definitely up there for haunted areas.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue if somebody said, if you told me I believe it's number one, Rev, I wouldn't argue with you. New Orleans is right there. Some of the cities throughout the Southern Belt, Southern Bible Belt. I mean, Georgia, Atlanta, places like that. So I wouldn't argue with you. 8 years old, I had my first, paranormal encounters at a very young age. And it's funny, the way you look at it as a small child is far different than how you look at it, many, many, many years later as an adult.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to know exactly what that encounter for you was like as a young Todd, and how you looked at it, how you look at the paranormal now as an older Todd.
Hmm.
And I can pretty much guess what scared you when you were young, but I'd like to know if what scares you now.
That's the interesting thing. We had a really interesting run in, and I think Susan talked about it on one of your shows at a history museum here locally, which was by far the most evil thing I've ever come across. And it's a 1% case. It's a 1% chance you're going to get a case like this. I've been doing this for a long time. I've never come across anything this evil. That was pretty freaky. Um, just seeing it jump from each teammate, jump to a news crew that was actually doing a story on us, and jump to the staff at this location over a period of weeks was really freaky. And what this thing did is it played off basically your biggest fears, and maybe not your biggest fears, but your fears in general. So, for example, we had I actually lost 3 investigators because of that case. 3. That one case. 3 people got so scared that they didn't want to do it anymore. 2 of them were trainees, and one was a seasoned vet. This thing it would basically suck up energy out of each individual for a period of about 8 hours, and then it would jump to someone else, and it would jump to someone else. And for example, one of the investigators we lost, her biggest fear is losing her home. All of her memories from her kids and grandkids are in that house, everything. And if she lost the house, it would be awful. So her husband comes home one day. They both work. They're outside of the house. This is in the middle of summer on the Cape, which is, if you're not familiar, well, you are, because you've been here before. You spent a lot of summers here. It's humid and it's hot, and it's not as far bad as the South. Like Florida is really hot, but it gets pretty bad here, and the heat index can get up to 105. So it's one of those really hot days, and her husband comes home before she does, and their gas fireplace is lit. Now, they didn't have the gas on because it's summertime on the Cape. You don't need heat in the summer. You just don't. Plus, the air conditioning was on. So, like I said, her biggest fear was losing that house, and the fireplace happened to be on. So her husband said, "Hey, did you happen to start the fire?" And she said, "No, as a matter of fact, the gas was off. It's been off. We haven't used it since, basically April. And this is in August. So it's quite a bit of a time frame there between when the gas was turned off and when the fires came on." That's one instance. Another case was, within this case, another instance that had happened was to me, and I witnessed a large industrial fan turning on that wasn't even plugged in. It wasn't plugged into the wall. There was no energy. It was impossible. And this fan kept turning on and off. And if you're familiar with these industrial fans, it sounds like a jet turbine. It's nothing. It's very loud. It shakes floors. And this was at my office. But this thing followed me there, and it completely messed with me for a whole day. I refuse to say this thing's name. I think we've got a pretty good handle on which entity it is, and it's a very well documented entity that goes back. I think the earliest documentation that we found was right around the 1400s, like late 1400s. And this thing's been torturing people. As a matter of fact, I think Zach Baggins came across this thing in one episode of his show. But we happened to come across it and tracked it down. We figured out what item it was attached to, the energy was attached to, and we got it out of that location. And ever since then, according to the staff there, everything's been perfect. Like, there hasn't been any negative energy in there. It's been a very positive experience. There's been no complaints. There's definitely some stuff in there other than this thing, but this thing was really causing some turmoil in that location. And just seeing the fact that it would follow us around and torment us for a couple of weeks at a time, it was not fun. So, and every time someone rings up his names, something else happens. It seems to come back, and it's been what, 2.5 years, 2 years since we were in there. So I think the last time this thing came across any of us was just a couple of months ago. It wasn't that. It was very recent. this thing keeps coming back. It's lingering, and nobody really likes it. But that's as far as I go, I'm pretty fearless when it comes to this stuff. So I'm not afraid of it per se, but it does get annoying for me, where a lot of people are actually very fearful of this thing. But it's kind of drawn me in too, which is not a good thing for me. And if you talk to Susan enough, she'll tell you being drawn to that dark energy is not good. And I've had a tendency to go to that direction ever since that case. So we'll see.
Your story gave me goosebumps, and it reminds me of why I just investigate with my wife and I. And even that's a stretch for me because my wife is a survivor of an extreme demonic attack that almost took her life. And that same entity attacked me, almost took my life. But I got too concerned about, and there was a time where um, things would do the same thing, jump to people on the team.
Yeah.
And so I got to the point where I couldn't concentrate on doing my job because I was so worried about everybody else. And so ultimately I had to stop. I had to break the team up and just it'd be shared tonight. Unfortunately, I can't it's not wise to work malevolent cases on your own.
Yeah, that's true.
But I wouldn't be able to sneak out and do them by myself anyway because my wife is very stubborn. She's fearless. She wants to be there and still continue to work them. But these things, what, and they do. I'm only human. God created me the way I am. There's nothing wrong with having the human emotion of being scared. I find myself experiencing startlement. Like I can be in a home and all of a sudden at once, every door, every cabinet, every drawer, every window starts opening and shutting all at the same time. And the noise can be so deafening that you can't even talk to the person that's standing next to you. And when you first experience something like that, it's very frightening, startling, frightening.
Yeah.
You're like, it's hard to get your mind to wrap around those types of things. It takes a lot of energy. And I talk to a lot of experts about this. I say experts. I don't really mean that because I believe what keeps guys like you and me passionate about what we do and keep us going is the fact that there are no experts and it's the unknown and we're trying to find out what this whole thing is about. But everyone says that all of the entities, good and bad, have that type of energy. It's just the malevolent ones tend to pervert it and use it in different ways, and it throws up red flags, and it's how you're able to determine the difference between what you're dealing with. But that's very, very scary. Is that the case where there's an object that you ended up?
Yes.
Yes. Excuse me. What exactly was that object? And
so
I don't want, I totally buy into if you talk about it too much, you give it energy you don't want to give. So, hoping my prayer did some good in the beginning.
I hope.
If I ask anything about this case that you don't want to talk about, I'm cool with that.
I am an open book with this case, Rev. I don't mind talking about it. Like I said, I'm not fearful of this stuff at all. I'm more fearful of the living than I am the dead, to be honest. And even demons don't really scare me anymore, not after this thing. But yeah, so it took us a little while to figure out where this energy was coming from. And ultimately, we tracked it down within the location. This is the Centerville History Museum, and it's a decent sized place. It's also got a huge history. It dates back, it's almost 400 years old, the original building, and they've added on over the years. Sorry, the sun's getting a little bright over here. But what happened is there's on the second floor in the original structure, there's this room. There's a couple rooms, but they've got kind of this main room, and it's got two big display cases on both sides with sliding glass, so they can switch out the different exhibits that they have in there. This happened to be, when we were in there, the exhibit upstairs in that room happened to be children's clothing from the 17 and 1800s. And I think they had some as late as like 1920, right around there, 1927. The thing is they had, and it was all pretty much white clothing. They didn't really have a whole lot of colors back then. So they had all this white clothing in there, which is actually, they had a bunch of dresses, and we didn't even know who they were for. And they were like, yeah, these are boys' clothes. it's easier to change diapers in a dress. It's like, yeah, that raises a good point. But there was one object in this room full of white clothing that stood out. And a couple of us on the team are not me per se, are pretty sensitive to things. And they can pick up different energies when you walk into a room. And for the most part, I think about 95% of that is pretty accurate, because some of these people have been with me for 12 years doing this. My case manager, Cindy, is one of those. She's been with me since I moved out here. We've been investigating together for 12 years now. So, and she's sensitive and she's very good at it. So she starts picking up this thing, and then we've got one of our investigator in trainings there, which we did lose her as well. She starts picking up this weird stuff in this room. And in this room of all clothing is what's called a Humpty Dumpty bank. If you're familiar with these are cast iron. They were made in like the 50s and 60s. I don't think they made it in the 70s. There's a little hand here, and you put the coin on the hand and you flip it up. Eyes creepy, they fall backwards. This was in that room. And this is not the actual item. This is a replica that we bought to replace that one if the museum wanted it. And my buddy Matt Warner actually found this at a thrift store out in Connecticut when he was out there. He said, Todd, he sent me a picture. He goes, do you want this for the museum? I said, yeah, absolutely. Grab it. But the actual one is what had all the energy. So during this process, we found out that we couldn't necessarily deal with this thing on our own. And we couldn't. None of us were demonologists. We weren't ordained ministers or deacons in the Catholic Church. We were not authorized to do these things, nor did we ever want to. Initially, the concept between T and K Paranormal was to work on residential cases that required help understanding what's in their house, the who and the why. Who is it and why are they there? We were never trying to get things out. We were never trying to deal with demonic entities and stuff like that. So what happened was, through some connections of mine, through some friends, we met up with a gentleman out of Rhode Island who is an ordained minister with the Catholic Church. He's also a deacon, a demonologist, and he's on the younger side of the spectrum. He's a younger guy. I think he's in his late 20s. So he hasn't been doing it that long, but he's really good at it. And he brought his psychic in, and she was really good with energy. Susan's a really good psychic. She can read stuff and pick up on stuff. And this other lady was really good in actually harnessing the energy and moving it from place to place. I've never seen anything like this before. It was really fascinating. So she moved the energy into the object that we really felt was this energy was attached to, which was this. Not this one, once again. This is a replica. And once we did that, the deacon came in. We had a special custom bag made for this, which was under the specs that the deacon wanted, that he suggested. There was two things. One, he said you can throw it in the ocean and get rid of it that way. I was like, well, I don't necessarily want to destroy it. I think it's kind of neat. Or two, you can make get a really good bag and salt the hell out of it. Really, honestly, pardon my French, but that's what he said. He said you can salt the hell out of it. Just throw a bunch of salt in there. And I said, all right, well, I'm not comfortable doing that. Can you come out and do that? He said, sure thing. So he came out in a couple of weeks, took care of that, and got rid of it. And ultimately, it ended up in John Zaffis's Haunted Museum collection, which is really cool. There really wasn't too many people that wanted to have this thing around their houses. And I thought about it for a while, but I really didn't want my 8-year-old around, just playing with it, because that could open up some other issues. Me personally, that's fine. I don't mind. Have fun with me. Don't mess with the family. Don't mess with them. But what was really interesting, though, is just that this item really stood out. And it's one of those things that nobody understood. Even the museum staff didn't understand what it was doing there. They don't remember anyone putting it there. So it was almost like it wanted to be found, which I think is interesting. But the other part of the story is the person that donated it didn't give them any information. Now, when they take donations at the museum, they keep really good records because they have to know the history for a couple of reasons. One is tax purposes. Two is it's just really good. If you're a museum, you want to know the history of these items. Yeah. So the person who dropped off the Humpty Dumpty bank said, we want you to have this, but we're not going to tell you where it came from, why it's here, why we're donating it. It's just, here, go ahead and take it. So that led us down the road of, the real question was, why did they do that? Why would someone just give away something? And this really is kind of cool, but the real ones, they're like $1,500 on the market. So why would you give something that has a family history, in your family, a family heirloom, to a museum and not give them any information? So I think the conclusion we came to was there was something attached to that. Yeah. They knew it and decided to hand it off on someone else because they didn't want to deal with it anymore. And I think their lives were probably pretty interesting for quite a few years until they figured out that was the item that this entity was attaching itself to.
Let me add something to that at the very end, other than to just say that these things are very vindictive. Um, I don't think there's uh, a word in the English language that would adequately describe um, vindictive to the thousandth power. But you guys, I don't hate to rain on your parade, but you guys may still occasionally have issues with this thing for a while.
Yeah.
Because that's just their MO. In the future, if you ever, Johnny on the spot, you've got to deal with something like that and bind it and throw it in a bag. Remember, never open the bag back up, or the luggage or whatever you do, put it in. But if you need to do that, if you want to retrieve that item out of whatever you bind it in, then definitely have some type of exorcism performed over the bag or whatever you've put it in before you take the article back out. It's very tricky stuff. I'd never heard the part about throw it in the ocean, but maybe some over hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, so many haunted things have been tossed in the ocean. Maybe that's why the seas are so haunted. Who knows?
Especially out here in the Cape with all the shipwrecks, right?
Oh my gosh!
It was really an interesting process, and it was about 4 hours of work just to get this thing binded, like you said. That's the term I was trying to find. Bind it back to the object from us. We were all blessed, and some of us aren't even Catholic. We didn't believe any of this stuff. Personally, I wasn't a huge believer in demons and hell and all this negative energy and stuff. And it was tough for me because I'd never been part of something that evil before. But I'll tell you what, after that experience, and even when I tell the stories about it, and there's a lot more to it than just what I was talking about. I mean, there was some crazy stuff that happened that most people would have freaked out. I mean, my office was crazy. I had to call Susan for help, and I mean, we resorted to some really interesting things to try and get that thing away from me. I had a rough day with this thing, but it all started really early in the morning, and it went all the way until about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So, but yeah, it was really one of those cases that at the time I was pretty upset at this thing because we walked into a situation kind of blind, and I don't like doing that. We typically do a couple-hour interview with our clients, and we go through a lot of questions, and we try to figure out what's going on ahead of the time we actually get in there, because we really want to know what we're dealing with. And if it's something really bad, we were going to pass it on to someone that really knows how to deal with that, because there's other teams out here that I'm good friends with that deal with this kind of stuff. I don't mind dealing with stuff that's fine and happy. Now, since that case, and this is what Susan was telling me, I've been really drawn to that side. And I'm looking for more of those cases now, which is kind of scary, but I don't know. Maybe because it's challenging and I like a challenge.
You mentioned a lot of children's clothing, antique children's clothing up at the top there. Did you happen to run into children's spirits up there?
No, but we did capture something on camera on one of our DVR cams, which is really interesting because keep in mind, this is a second floor. There's one window. There is a road right outside. Main Street's right outside the window, not outside that window. This one is on the side of the house, but you do get some reflections out of the glass. However, we checked every one of our cameras, and we had 20. Let me see. We had 12 cameras in there. We had 2 different DVR sets. I checked every one of those cameras at the exact time that this thing was in the glass. We spotted this thing. It was probably about 5. I would say about 5 to 5'3", so bigger than child. Maybe more of a female stature from the period. But we captured some really neat movement. It was almost a reflection of a person, and you can see the whole thing in there. And that's how I know it wasn't a car, because a car would have just flashed real small up there. This took up a big, I mean, it was at least 5 feet tall. And we played that hundreds of times, and it's still, you just kind of scratch your head. And you're like, what exactly is this? What we do know, it's not what's attached to this. That's not what we caught on camera. So we know there's at least 2 things in there. The other really neat thing that's in that museum is they've got parts of a shipwreck, a wheel. And this shipwreck, Sean, you might know because it happened It's right around. They got stuck in a hurricane, and I want to say it was right around like the 1920s, 1915 maybe, right around there. And the ship was coming out of Maine, coming down past the Cape. I think it was going to Falmouth, if I'm right. Um, and there was a ship. It wrecked. It wrecked right there on the coast. It was right on the national seashore. They actually have the original wheel to the ship in their basement. And one thing that's really cool that we all heard was music, period music playing from the 1920s, which is just strange. And there's no reason, because there wasn't anything playing when we were there. There was no record player. There's no sound system or a PA system in there. And we're downstairs, or we're listening to this. We're like, what was that? You know? And then we caught it on audio too, which is even better. So that way we got some proof of it. But yeah, that place was pretty interesting.
Museums are haunted. So many museums I've been into have been so haunted. And the reason why I ask about the children is two reasons. I seem to be a magnet for them. If there's children spirits at a location, and they exactly act as though children act when they're alive. Like if they're comfortable with you, like they'll tug on your pant leg, or they'll just come up and hold your hand while you're walking. And I posted a picture of you today looking out an old window from a home somewhere. And it reminded me of almost an exact photo my wife took of me in an attic of an old home here in Vegas, where they had changed the attic into like a playroom for the original owners back in the day had made the attic into like a playroom. Oh, wow. And children spirits had been heard up there. Well, I felt the presence of a child, and I said, it's okay for you to continue to play. I'm not here to bother you. I'd like to watch you play. I'm cool, yada yada yada. If you'd like to show me that you are here, you're more than welcome to, and you're not going to scare me, and I hope I'm not scaring you. And I was just in the same position as you were, and low, children height, a fog appeared on the glass of the window, and 3 dots, and I couldn't figure out what the dots were. 3 tiny little dots, wondering what does that mean. Finally, I figured out, if you took a child's hand, a tiny little child's hand, an adult would put all 5 fingers or press their hand. The child would just, as his hand is coming to the window, just those 3 little fingers would touch. Yeah. He'd be just barely touch with the 3 fingers. That's my theory. But that appeared right in front of me, and I thought that was the coolest thing. I've had them, this one location I was at, the kid, every time I went there to visit, because I felt an attachment to the young boy spirit that was there, he'd run up and jump on my back, and I would end up giving him a piggyback ride practically around the whole location until I left. Craziest thing. What about the pirate ship that crashed?
The Weta?
No. They ended up finding a mass grave.
That's probably the Weta. The Weta is what crashed out here. There's a big pirate museum, which is fantastic. I took Teddy there. They've got, I don't know, something like 36 cannons, and more than half of them are in stellar shape. I mean, they're spectacular. You can touch the coins that they found, the actual treasure. They've got the bell off the Weta. It's right when you walk in there. It's really cool. It's a great place. But yeah, I just wanted to touch on that picture real quick, because you bring up a really interesting point. That location is the Major John Bradford house. John Bradford, the Major, was the son of Governor Bradford, the first governor of Massachusetts, and one of the original people that came over, one of the original pilgrims. So that house in that location, right on that spot where that picture was taken, it's a hallway. And I think servants used to use that kind of as the back entry to serve people and take care of the rooms and stuff like that. However, on the other side of the hallway, there's a little tiny door that goes into a room, and there's a child spirit in that room. And so I think it's fascinating you brought up a kid in that place in the picture that you were talking about of yourself that looked like that, because we have a really cool child spirit in that place. And wow. he or she, this little child, responds really well to other kids that are in there. not necessarily adults. It doesn't like talking to the regular adult. But I brought my son in there. Matt brought his daughter. We had just a really fun time in there. It's a very positive, uplifting experience. Positive energy that's in there. And they had a full conversation with the thing in there. And we couldn't get it really to talk to us. But it was absolutely fascinating to see the interaction with the two kids and the child spirit. So yeah, that was really interesting. You brought that up about that picture. So,
Well, maybe it's because I felt something with that.
yeah.
It jumped. I was stalking you for some photos, and I saw that photo and it jumped right out at me, and I just felt something about it, and wanted to post it.
Susan took that one back away.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool.
Yeah.
And feel free to share anything about Susan
Yeah.
that she wouldn't think I would know, and I'll tease her about it next time I talk to her. But before we run out of time, we still got plenty of time. But I want to make sure everybody knows what they need to know about you, because I know that this year, this summer and fall in the Cape is going to be head and shoulders above what it was last year. And I know you offer a lot of things. www.massparanormal.com, all one word. And you've also got a Facebook page. But that's your Mass Paranormal Adventures Ghost Tours group.
Yeah.
What do you have planned, if you can talk about it? Can you at least let me know if you guys are going to be doing that in this summer and fall coming up? Because I know people have been asking.
Yeah, so that's Mass Paranormal was an interesting concept, and it came out in the fall of 2019, so just before the pandemic hit. And I was part of a program called E for All, and did a pitch contest and took second place in that. Then I went through another program, almost a master's degree in how to start the business. And it was a new concept. It was basically kind of a spin-off, but a totally separate company from T&K. Now, T&K started as a nonprofit. We don't charge our clients for investigations. We come in, we do all the work, we'll make multiple trips. We know there's no investigation that you get done in one time. It just doesn't happen. So our clients have been with us for years. Matter of fact, we're going back to see two clients this summer, one this month and one next month, that have been with us for, well, geez, we've had those cases for about 4 years now, 5 years maybe, going on 5 years. And we keep going back because we keep getting more information. And not only that, but these things get to know us and they talk more. It's just like building a friendship with someone. You know, it's like you and I, we're just getting to know each other. But as we do this more, we're going to learn to trust each other. We're going to talk a lot more, right? So, but with Mass Paranormal, it was an idea, it was a concept. And what the concept is that we wanted to take our love of the paranormal and bring it to the masses. And we wanted to show people what we actually do and let them experience it as well. We know there's people that are going to be afraid of the stuff. You know, we're trying to kind of ease them into this and just show them what it's like. There's a lot of groups out there that are doing this, and there's a lot of big national groups that are doing it too. So it's nothing new, but we really wanted to do it on the Cape because there's no one really doing the concept that I wanted to bring to the Cape, which was we do some haunted tours, right? So we walk around some of the, you know very well, we've got some fantastic main streets here on the Cape. You know, we got Falmouth, Barnstable, Chatham. P-Town is even the best. I mean, you walk around P-Town, you can go down Commercial Street for days and see stuff you've never even seen the time before. But there's stories, and there's a lot of history, and there's a lot of ghost stories to tell. A friend of mine does the one in Barnstable Village, which is fantastic, and we used to help them out back 10 years ago with those tours. They were a lot of fun. The second one is to bring groups into these investigations. So, you know, we bring a group of 8 to 10 people. We'd split them up into maybe 2 teams. A couple of us would take them out. We'd show them the ropes, and we'd actually let them experience what we experience in some of these historic locations. And the third part that we wanted to do was basically a paranormal lockdown, where we rent a place out for the night. We lock the doors, and we see how long you last. Some of these places are pretty active, and you know, as the night goes on, as they get to know you, they become really active. And that stuff can be pretty. You know, you've been there. Some of the stuff's pretty freaky. So we really wanted to bring that experience to the masses and see if it was a good concept. The problem was timing. So we were just going to kick this thing off in the spring of 2020, and then all hell broke loose, and everything was shut down. And I'll never forget the day that it happened. You know, my whole work shut down too, and it was, you guys are working from home, no more meetings. I had to cancel a big meeting I had the next day. I had 50 people showing up to a location, and the commissioner called me and says, "Nope, cancel it." And that was at 5 o'clock the day before. So essentially, it just shut us down. So I haven't really focused on that at all. I would love to get that concept and that idea back up and running, actually start it, right, to get it up and running sometime this summer. And I'm probably shooting for fall just because the summer is going to be really hectic because last summer was pretty much shut down. There's going to be a lot of people here this summer. And the Cape gets about 6 million visitors in 3 months. And everyone's going to want to go to the beach. They're going to go to the bars. They're going to buy a whole bunch of stuff they don't need, like usual. And then they leave. So this concept is not just for those visitors, but it's really for the locals because there's not a lot of stuff to do here when you live here year round. In the winter, you're not going to the beach. It's too cold. We get snow. We get blizzards. So this would be an idea to bring people inside and another activity to do. So
just know that people have asked. People are wanting to know. Yeah. So when things settle down for you, you get a chance to start looking at that again. Know that people have asked. People want to know, and I think it'll take off for you with the way the last year had been. If you guys just put a couple of things together, a couple of just knock your socks off locations there in the fall, I think it'll be a big hit. Another thing concerns me, TNK Paranormal Research Society. All I hear is good things. Attractive team. I've seen many photos, and the team has changed over time. But you mentioned, let me make sure that everybody knows the www.tkprs.org, and there's also a Facebook page, and that's TNK Paranormal Research Society. I went to the website. I believe it was the website, not the Facebook page, and I chuckled a little bit because you told the story earlier tonight, losing members, but you list the whole team and then you have these open position slots. So where are you at? I want everybody to know that's close to you or in your town that has ever wanted the opportunity to whatever in this field. Where does that stand now with you taking applications and bringing on 2 new team members?
If we could find people with experience, I would definitely talk to them. If there's some people that are willing to learn, I'm willing to talk to them too. Typically, a good team size for me is about 6 is really a good number. You can split up into 3 teams or 2 teams of 3. So, and it's a good coverage. And that way, if you're going into a residential case, like we've got a residential case that's not a huge home, perfect for 4 people. Like you really don't want 6 people in there. It's just going to get too noisy. You're going to have too much noise pollution. So you really want to keep that to a small section of the team. And then you rotate them out. So, right. So someone goes this time and then you go back next month and you bring the other ones that weren't. The team at one point, I think we had 8. That was at the high point. And that was a lot of people. That was a lot of people to manage.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of different opinions. Which I don't mind. I love opinions, but could lead to some turmoil. So
people don't understand that many do know that have been doing this for a while. Many more don't know that, and this is going to sound weird, but a team almost has to run like a military unit.
Yeah.
Because then you're right. People are all over the place. Different approaches, different theories, different techniques. Everybody's, debating, no, we should do it this way. No, we should do it that way. The team leader asks somebody to do something and maybe not be it really does have to almost be run like a military unit where everybody knows who the boss is.
Everyone knows their job.
Yeah, everybody knows their job. And so it can be tough, and not everybody thinks, oh, I'm going to join this team and I'll bring my own camera, my own voice over recorder, and I'll, we'll go to these locations and I'll do my thing, and it is what it is. And some people, the way they approach it may not be right for that team. So then a decision has to be made. The team leader has to talk to this person and say, listen, there's a few things I'd like to tweak about your approach to this. And if you're open to that, great. If not, I may have to cut you loose because the fit won't be there. And I don't mean anything personal, but yada, yada, yada. But you're right, then people's feelings get hurt. And it's tough.
Yeah, we've had to do that. We've definitely had personality conflict, and the team has taken on, new members. The team's fairly new right now. The original team, there's some personality conflict there, and it was going great for quite a few years, and then at some point it just kind of, someone thinks someone said something, and next thing you know, you got a internal beef there, when it's not. In my opinion, I'm not going to deal with that. I'm just going to cut you and let you go, because we're not here for we're here for each other. We're here to watch each other's backs, but we're here for the clients. We're here to make sure that those people understand what's in their home and are comfortable with it, right? We're trying to make them feel good, because I don't think anyone deserves to be in their house and be afraid of it.
Absolutely.
Especially kids. I mean, that's the worst. If a kid can't pull
I know what I wanted to ask you before we ran out of time. Something jumped out at me. I'm not a big techie guy, and not a big. I'm an old school dude. I'm still using dowsing rods and throwaway cameras from the drugstore and Polaroids, and I've got the little voiceover recorders that still use the little cassette tape decks. I do have a couple of nice cameras. I have a nice full spectrum camcorder and a high def full spectrum video camera. But I'm very old school. My wife is old school. But something jumped out at me on your equipment. Oh my gosh, I did write it down. The Flying World Action Cam. What is that?
So those are basically GoPro knockoffs, is all they are. But what I do is I modify those to suit our needs. So what that means is I turn them into full spectrum cameras, so they can see in all spectrums of light. And once you do that, you need to get an IR light, an infrared light, that project in order to see in the dark. And when you do that, because a regular camera won't see in the dark, right? Once the lights go out, it's pitch black. So I've figured out how to alter those things, modify them. I sold a bunch for a while. I still have a stockpile of them. If anybody wants to buy them, I got them cheap.
Yeah, I was surprised to see you had a lot of equipment there, which was very cool. I love that. Yeah.
But I've got all kinds of cameras. I've got some really cheap stuff that I've picked up for very inexpensive, and I've got some. And I also have a GoPro 8, I think it is, that's modified by another company, because I won't touch the GoPros. They're way too complicated. Their lenses are. I'm not going to blow. I'm not going to blow a $400 camera. So I don't mind doing the $20 and $30 specials, but the big ones I won't. But I bought that one, and that one's unbelievable. But there's a lot of different equipment out there, and we use a lot of different things. So I'll pick up stuff here and there, and we'll test it out. There's some stuff that we bought that was just a joke. There's a lot of people out there that make stuff, and it's like, really? But then there's other stuff that you buy, and it's fantastic. And you can't say it works 100% of the time, because it probably doesn't, but it definitely picks something up. And whether it's paranormal or not, you've got to figure out and decipher the code, right? There are times when it works. If you can get two items to work together, and bounce off each other, or start a conversation, it flashes the right colors or the right pace, whatever it is, you're probably talking to something that's not terrestrial, right? It's something else.
Yeah.
But yeah, we use all kinds of different stuff, and sometimes we'll use it, and other times we won't. And then here's the funny thing. So then sometimes we go old school. So I've got a bag full of Scrabble chips, and sometimes we'll just throw that on the table and see what words come out. So there's just different methods, and different uses for different items. I'm not opposed to testing things and trying really obscure things out. Most of the time it doesn't work, but the times it does, it's pretty cool. So I'm always up to trying things.
Well, in the 4 minutes we have left, I'm going to ask you a question that, depending on your answer, you may get a lot of hate mail later.
Oh no. Here we go.
Okay. Pseudoscience. I hate it when someone says, "Oh, what you do is a pseudoscience." I always argue that and say I really hate it when you throw that term at me. I have nothing wrong with science, but I am a spiritual guy.
Yeah.
To me, in my humble opinion, what we do, ghostbusting, ghost hunting, paranormal investigating, divination, all of that sort of stuff, it's a spiritual thing. It's always been, still is, always will be a spiritual thing. even though we capture these EVPs and the ITC is a big thing now, and you get these ghost photos and what appears to be an apparition on um, on film, we still can't prove that that's what that is.
Yeah.
Those of us that have had major experiences, personal experiences with the paranormal, we know. People that haven't are never gonna really know. They may believe, but they're never gonna really know unless they've had those experiences.
Yeah.
Um, do you believe the day it'll always be like this, or there'll be a day where I can sit down and I can interview a ghost just like you on my podcast, figure out a way to do that, and then that's the way it is.
So that's a really good question, and that's one of those questions that we could probably go into a 3 day long discussion,
Absolutely.
a debate.
And
But
my voice wouldn't hold up for that, so we'll do that another time.
neither would your allergies. But here's just a quick 30-second thing that I've found with my team, with T&K. We've had conversations with things, okay? And I think you are right to a certain extent, right? This is a very spiritual thing that we're dealing with because there is really no science backing it. However, we try to take a scientific approach. We're not scientists, for one. We're not experts. We're not professionals. We're just a bunch of people with various jobs. I work in solid waste and recycling. I have no science degree when it comes to anything like this. But the equipment that we use and the approaches that we take, we try to eliminate as much as we can, right? So that qualifies a scientific approach to find something that's spiritual. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what we do is when we go into a place and we start investigating, we want to build that relationship with what's in there. We want them to get to know us as people, as friends. So we try to really treat these things with dignity and respect as if we were dealing with an actual living being, right? A living soul. Because that's all anybody wants. They just want to be acknowledged. They want people to know that they existed or that they do exist. Because the stuff that we've come across, I mean, I'll let you listen to some stuff later if I'll send it to you. In my opinion, there's no doubt, right? But that's my opinion. So other people look at it and go, no, I don't hear that. And in my own household, that happens, which is even funnier.
Yeah, I try never to send somebody a photo with the circle around what I want them to look at, or with the bouncing ball underneath on the sentence of what the EVP was supposed to say. I just send it to them, and
tell me what you think.
And like I said, I'll leave it with this. I've gone on investigations with the most intelligent, diehard, skeptical parapsychologists you can imagine, who have actually had apparitions appear right in front of them. And then as soon as the apparition dissipates, they're looking at me and already debunking it.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. But oh my gosh, I told you the hour was going to fly by, and
well, we can do another hour.
I want to know one thing. Did you have fun? Will you come back?
Oh, I'd love to. I'd love to continue this conversation with you.
Absolutely, brother. When I get done here, after I go and have a major coughing fit, I will look at my calendar and throw some dates at you later in the summer. Check in on you on how it's coming along, where you're at with Mass Paranormal Adventures, and we'll go into more detail with some of your other spine tingling cases you've been on. I love that talk because I don't really get out to do that sort of stuff much anymore. It's all much more darker, more malevolent stuff that comes across my desk. But I love you, brother. I respect you. It's a pleasure to finally get a chance to meet you.
Likewise.
Have a great remainder of your Friday afternoon and a great weekend. Stay healthy. Get your family together in a big group. Give them a big hug. And when they go, Dad, what are you doing? Go, that's from the Rev. And I'll be in touch, brother.
Sounds great. Thanks for your time. And I would like to extend an invitation to you. If you ever get back out here, you want to see the Cape again, we'll take you out with us.
You got it, brother.
All right.
You got it. Have a great evening, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks. You too, Rev.
Good night, man.
Good night.
Oh, gosh. You guys don't have to send me a bunch of messages asking when Todd going to be back. I promise I'll send him some open dates and get it back, because there are some other things on my list here I wanted to talk to him about, and it just didn't happen today. The show's not long enough. Sorry, guys. But wow, my voice held up. So, God bless you all for tuning in because I don't have a show without you guys. A big thank you to my beautiful, passionate, talented producer, Adrian Hart, Desert Heart Paranormal, Ghost Tech, co owner of the Paranormal United Network. Um, I wouldn't have a show without her. So thank you, Adrian. Guys, if you like my show, go over to the Paranormal United Network Facebook Live page. Great lineup of shows there, way better than mine. So check it out. I'll be here next Friday. You guys already know him and love him. He's back because there's just so much on this topic we didn't cover last time. Friday the 18th, Mr. Carl Supp, one of the leading authorities on all things Sasquatch, Bigfoot, Janosqua, that I know. And he's at a location now where he's experiencing some stuff as we speak. So maybe we will have disclosure on the existence of Bigfoot next week. So that'll be Carl Supp on the 18th. Until then, guys, everybody have a beautiful week. Stay blessed. Stop the anger, stop the violence. Anger is just a punishment we put on ourselves for somebody else's mistake. Stop the violence, stop the violence, stop the violence. I love you all. I will keep you all in my prayers. Until next week, good night, Harold. Rest in peace. Good night, Ernie. Good night, Bill. Good night, Dan. God bless everyone. Peace. Good night.